cut that off. Welcome to the Meet at the Creek podcast, and I'm your host, Pastor James Jeffrey. If you have questions or comments, send them to mudcreekpastor@gmail.com. That's mudcreekpastor@gmail.com. Meet at the Creek, sermons, discussions, and real talk. Let's get into it. All right, welcome into the Meet at the Creek podcast. I am James Jeffrey. I'm here tonight, joined live in the house from the coffee shop by the head football coach of North Jackson High School, Mr. Joseph Hollis. Coach,
happy to be here.
Wow,
this is a cool setup. I can't get over that intro. That was nice.
Well, tonight's the first night of the new intro. Some of my fans out here, as I'm going to refer to them, are probably Shelby actually gave a comment, said that sounded professional. And Brooke Bunch says they're coming to crash the party. Brooke, you stay at home. We don't want any skunks down here. Hey. Oh, goodness. Nick Jernigan's watching. What's up, Nick? How you doing? There's Natalie, Dawn. Man, we got 28 people. Miss Andrea Bryant's watching. So, man, there's a lot of folks already. Do us all a favor. Just some housekeeping right fast, like before we get started. If you're watching, please like, love, do everything but put an angry face, and share. Share away. Everybody share. Here about 10 minutes, share it again. And let's get it out to as many people as we can. I haven't told anybody, Coach, but tonight you're only the second person that's been actually sitting across from me. The last time I did it, I had Craig Holcomb, but that night I did an interview. I interviewed three people. I did three policemen all at the same time, and it was funny having Craig in studio because that's where I think Jonathan Beatty is the guy who determined that he and I look like Big Enos and Little Enos. And the next thing I know, there was a meme going around with Big Enos and Little Enos. So they can't talk that way to you because they'd be afraid of getting smacked. Not by you, by me. That's just it's a lot of fun. We have a lot of fun with those guys, and but this is my first time doing it off location. Normally I do it just by myself at the house. But I was telling Austin, I was telling you just a minute ago, I'm wanting to shift it up here and have actual in-house guests.
Yeah.
When basketball season gets here, it's going to be a little more difficult. I may have to pre-record a few. Austin and I were discussing how to do that, how to make that happen, where I can maybe bring folks in on Sunday afternoon or a Saturday or something like that and do it, make it a little more fit into the schedule, and then premiere those later so that I can still do my podcast on time. But these are so much fun, and they're so interesting, and you get to interact with people. I'm not even watching. I probably need to just move this thing down here in front of me where I can see all of the comments as they're coming in. But, man, there's so many comments. My wife said, Jonathan Beatty, make a new meme. Please. These guys, it's because I'm here. He said, these guys, they're brutal, Coach, with the comments. I ain't even going to lie.
Well, that's okay. I'm used to it.
Well, I guess being a football coach, it's kind of like being the pastor. You can't make anybody happy because you can't make everybody happy. And that's just kind of the way it is. But I do want to go ahead and kind of hop in tonight. again, I appreciate everybody for tuning in. It's been, man, and I'm getting old and I can't see anymore. There it is. I have my list of questions that I made out. I put them on my phone so that I wouldn't lose them. Tonight I decided to change things up a little bit, and well, I'm changing them up a whole lot. I sent you a list of questions, and I got this idea from him because he did it to me, and I came up with a list of questions to help people kind of get to know you, and then I'm not going to ask all of them, but I'm just going to go hit and miss as we go through here. But things that I think would be important for other people to know about you. And I was talking to a guy today, and I said, listen, I have close to 5,000 people on my Facebook.
Wow.
Some people follow me. Some people follow me closely. Some people I went to school with. I have people watching, around the world, and there are people who watch from Japan. They'll wake up, tomorrow, and while they're busy about their day, they're overseas in the military, things like that. I get messages from different places all over the country where people, will go back and they actually go back and rewatch these.
Oh yeah.
And some people go back and they just play them during the day, and it's in the background and while they're working, doing their thing. Some will be driving down the road and go back and listen to them. Tonight we're recording it also audibly, just audio only, on a file. Separately from this, I'm going to upload this onto the actual podcast. So you're going to be the first one I get to do both video and audio at the same time. So it's going to go out just a bunch of different places, and I'm excited about that. And I've been holding off about having you in until I could get to this, because I feel like you're since you've been coming here, you and I got to know each other. I feel like you're probably one of the most underrated people. Take football, anything else out of the equation. Since the day I met you, I didn't even know you were the football coach for, I don't know.
It was about
4 or 5 weeks,
yeah.
I guess, went by before I ever knew you were the football coach. I would ask, I remember asking Michelle and Brooke, and I'm like, who is that guy? You guys know his wife. Who is he? Well, that's Coach. Well, what's his name? Yeah. Well, Coach. We don't know. He's Coach. And I'm like, okay. And then I asked my boss man at work. That's how I rehearsed your name over and over. So I was like, surely he don't want to be called Coach. And then I finally memorized your name. And now all I do is call you Coach.
Well, I mean, it's a term of endearment.
Yeah.
My daughter, since I came into her life when she was 4 years old, that's all she's ever called me.
Yeah.
And so, it's kind of like anything. You put your heart and soul and you do something. I love being called Coach. There's not a better feeling. Now, the way I grew up, we didn't live I don't have a hometown. About every 6 years, my dad would change jobs and we'd go different places. But since I've been fortunate enough to be here, there's a certain feeling you get when you go to the grocery store and you see people and they say, "Hey, Coach."
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be anything more than that. But
right.
It's a lot of fun. And no, I take it as a term of endearment. It's kind of like people spend a lot of years called doctor and everything else. Well, Coach, I feel like I've earned it, but I've lived it. Grew up in it, and now I'm doing it, and very fortunate to be able to do that.
I saw Coach Houston's wife the other day in the restaurant, Tony up there in Stevenson, and me and my wife were sitting there eating, and she came walking up, and she had a friend with her. She stopped. We talked for just a minute, and I was like, "Where's Coach?" It's like, and then I was like, maybe I should have. In my mind, maybe I should have told her who I was talking about, but she knew immediately I was talking about Matt, and I was like, sorry.
Yeah, and
all you guys are coached to me now. I can't help it.
You got to be careful with that one because we brought Sam out of retirement. He's coaching with us this year, and we have Matt. So
wow,
we've got the whole. And then I think Taylor just got approved today she's working at the middle school, so we've got the whole clan.
Oh my goodness! Oh my goodness! It's going to be a Houston reunion.
Yeah.
Houston, we have some problems.
we'll know one to go to for sure.
That's right. All right, Coach, we're going to hop into it here. And this is not going to last long, but these are just things which you can take as long as you want to answer them, or you can answer them as quickly as you want, and that's totally up to you. I didn't make it hard but you may have to think about a few of them for a minute, and that's okay. Depending on what answer you're going to give, you may want to think about it for longer than a second.
Well, now, if Nick's watching, he did warn me today. We talked about it while they were stretching today, and he said, Coach, you're going to have to watch your mouth while you're on the air. And I said, I appreciate the advice. I planned on doing it.
Thank you, Nick. My man. I appreciate it.
They're looking out for me.
Yeah, they're good kids, man. All right. What would you say, Alan, he said that won't last long. You're up there lying on the church bench. I don't know if he's talking about me or you.
Ye of little faith.
We love you too, Alan. What do you say or think that most people misunderstand about you?
I would say the most misunderstood thing is football and coaching. It's my profession, but it's not who I am. It's a part of who I am, but being a great husband, a great father, those fall right in line. I love my players. I love my kids. I'm very fortunate to be able to do something that I'm passionate about, and I'm excited every day to be able to do it and to have an impact, but it doesn't define me. And I think some people, when they see us out, that's how they identify with us, but they also don't understand that we're people, we have families, and when it's all said and done, I don't want to be remembered for what we did on the football field. I want to be remembered for the impact I had on my wife, on my kids, on all the players that I've coached, all the kids that I've taught. That to me is more important than just being known as a football coach.
Absolutely. So you brought up the wife. How did you and her meet?
Well, we met kind of in passing, but she was working across the street from the school at a convenience store, and I met her, and one day I got enough nerve to talk to her, and then we went out a couple times, and it just kind of snowballed from there. I met my match. She can match me in intellect. She can match me in attitude, and it's exactly what I needed in my life, and I'm so fortunate and happy that we did cross paths and we built a life together.
Absolutely.
But it's like anything. It's teamwork, and we have our battles just like anybody else, but it's nice to have someone that is your equal. Mm-hmm. And she's my equal in every form of the imagination. And if I think I'm good, she can humble me in a heartbeat and take me to my knees. And I know Miss Dawn's the same way with you, but that's how it's supposed to be.
Yeah, don't be building my wife up like that, Coach. I get home and I'll be sleeping on the couch just because she says I can. I'm just kidding. I understand totally what you're saying. She's when I didn't know anything about Bailey. I was closer to you, and I'm don't consider myself close to her now, but we do talk a little bit here in Yunner, and football games mostly, and I just listen to her talk, and man, she understands. She understands what her role is right now. Not just as the wife of the football coach, but as your wife. She just have a great understanding of who she needs to be while, till the lights go out. And then once the lights go out at the field, she's somebody else. She turns into to who you need her to be after all that's said and done. She has a great understanding of what it takes to do. And, I was blown away because a lot of people don't understand. Having a wife that's out in the front and in the limelight, and people are looking at her. They have expectations of her. A lot of people judge her based on my performance.
Sure.
And she has to hear things that I don't get to hear because people don't have the courage to tell it or say it in front of me. But I think now that people, after dealing with my wife, some people would probably rather just go and say it to me.
Well, and my life's very much the same way. Now, she's the most amazing mom and caring person, hugest heart. But say something negative about me or say something about our kids, and you're going to get
Absolutely.
the full force behind her. And I don't want to mess with that. I don't know anybody else that would.
Absolutely. All right, I want to switch up just a minute. We'll bounce back and forth because I want to say some serious things in here too, but keep it lighthearted. What do you feel like your biggest failure is? And I'm not talking about in life, but just the thing that you failed at that you learned the most from.
I would say when I first got into coaching, I was on the collegiate level, and that was just what I had known. My dad had done it, and then I got the opportunity, was a student assistant at Auburn and became a graduate assistant and went to Georgia Southern, and then just because of circumstance and really the ability to make a living, I got into high school coaching, and my first high school job was at Oak Mountain High School. And probably my biggest regret was I didn't treat the situation like it was. I was just wrapped in football, and football was everything, and nothing else really mattered. And that was probably the first few years I was in high school coaching. It was all oriented about winning football games. And the more I've gotten into it and where I'm at now, I'm a completely different person, but really this is all about people. This is about dealing with people. This is about helping people. I tell my players all the time, every single one of our kids has a story.
Right.
And it's our job as coaches to know that story and be what they need. There's a lot of kids that need discipline, but sometimes guys just need somebody to talk to. Right. They just need somebody to listen. They don't need any answers. They just need to know that somebody's there that loves them and cares for them, and if they need something, we'll help them out any way we can. And that's probably been the biggest thing that's changed from when I first started coaching to where I'm at now, is just the human element. Because at the end of the day, be a good person, treat people the way they're supposed to be treated, and you want to be treated, and that makes a difference. And it's a little thing, but it makes the difference. It makes the job very, very enjoyable.
Right. You answered my next question right there, is what you would want to be remembered for, and it'd be for making a difference. So I'll skip to the next one. What's the best compliment that you ever got?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I mean,
You just like me. I hate somebody to compliment me.
Well, and it's hard. It's hard to take. But the best compliment is having relationships with guys that even you maybe didn't know that you said something or did something that affected them, but it affected them. And I've had a few players over the years that they'll send me a letter or send me a text, or I had one that left one in my car one day. My truck was unlocked at the field house, and I just walked in and there was a letter sitting in there. But knowing that you've had that type of relationship, that's probably the best compliment you can get. And when you see them and you see them out in public, or while I'm coaching my daughter playing softball or my son's playing t-ball, or there's no awkwardness, there's no oh, you did this to me. There's it's just that not a lot of words have to be said, just a nod or a handshake or a fist bump. That to me is everything.
Right. What do you feel like is the best? Let's see. Let me rephrase this. Let me just read it the way I got it wrote down. What's an insult that you've received that you're the most proud of?
Ooh. Well, I've been accused of being too passionate, and I don't think that can be a bad thing. I think it can if you let it distract from what your daily duties are. Mm-hmm. But passion and pouring into the players, to the students, to my own family, that's. If anybody accuses me of that, I don't really take that as a compliment, as an insult. Take it as a compliment.
What's been your favorite job so far? All the jobs you've had. It don't have to be football.
No, I being a dad, like that's the coolest thing. You know, you take kids from birth, and you know you see your traits and who you are and who you've become interacted in real time and in real life, and some of it's things that you see that you're like, oh my goodness, I need to correct this, because they inherit your personality. Both my sons, my daughter, like you could lock them in a room. They all have their own separate personalities. They're all their own separate people, but you can tell the parts of them that I've influenced. You can tell the parts of them that my wife's influenced, and it's very, very rewarding on a small level. Like you don't even know that it's rewarding, but it really is, just to watch them grow up and the things that they take enjoyment in, and when it's the same things that you take enjoyment in and the things that you enjoy doing, there's a lot of pride with that.
I had a question here on Facebook. Mark asked, did you play football yourself, and what position, if you did?
Okay, well, I did. Now, my dad, even though he was a college football coach, he wasn't going to let me play. I wanted to play when I was in elementary school, but he made a rule with me that I couldn't play until I was in middle school. Well, I had a paper route, and the middle schools in Ohio were just like the ones here. You couldn't start playing for the school when you were in 7th grade. So when I was in the 6th grade, I rode my bike up to the local park, which was only about a half mile away from the house, and I had some money I made from the paper route, and I signed myself up, and I forged my parents' signature, and I turned the form in, and I went home and told them, and I think they were upset, but at the same time, I think they were a little bit impressed that I just had that much. And so I started playing in the 6th grade, and I played all the way through high school. I was mainly a receiver, and I was a specialist. I deep snapped, but I was a receiver. And then I started as a quarterback, and then I was a quarterback all the way through 9th grade. And then when I got into 10th grade and into high school, I moved to receiver. And then my senior year, right before the start of our senior year, the guy that was playing quarterback, he got hurt, and I had to be the quarterback for a good portion of our senior year. And but I knew from a young age, probably about 4th grade, when my dad was coaching at Ohio State, that there was something different in those guys and me. I didn't have that. I didn't have that it that you want to describe. I was a decent player, but I wasn't a superstar. You know, in my family, my brother, he's about an inch taller than me and a whole heck of a lot faster. He was a receiver at Wake Forest in college. I didn't have that, but I knew I loved the game. It gave me direction. It gave me discipline. It gave me a purpose, and I was going to do whatever I had to do to stay involved in it. And there's no way from the beginning that I ever saw it turning out the way it is now. I didn't want this for anything, and it's amazing how it's kind of all unfolded.
Right. Rupert Wright said to tell you he believes that you're a class act, and we appreciate that. I appreciate him saying that too, coming from a guy like Rupert. Man, if you know Rupert,
well, thank you.
You know, I don't know how well you know Rupert. That's Andrea Bryant's brother.
Oh, okay.
He just this year got elected to the Hall of Fame, and he was voted into Liberty.
Oh,
the
wow.
University Hall of Fame. He was in their first class, or maybe he was the first offensive lineman that was in their Hall of Fame. But he came
yes. One day, didn't he?
Yeah, he lives in. They live out in Texas.
Yes.
And man, he's a fantastic guy himself. He's got a son that coaches football, and he coached football. He actually coached football at Scottsbury here with Coach Morris and some of those guys way back in the day. But if you could go back and tell 18-year-old Joseph one thing, what would it be?
Relax. You don't have to be in control of every situation. Life's going to throw you curveballs, and the best thing to do is roll with it. And
go back while you're going back. Talk to that guy. Go back. Talk to 18-year-old Preach. Tell him the same thing.
And yeah, I mean, just staying positive, not getting defeated, and knowing that tomorrow the sun's going to come up, and everything's going to have a way of working itself out, and that would be the best thing. That you as you get older, you realize the things that caused you dilemmas or caused you trauma while you were growing up and going through that. They, at the end of the day, they weren't really that big a deal, because there's a plan, and your job's just to be along for the ride and be the best person you can be as long as you're going through it.
What does your morning routines look like?
Ooh, well, I'm a shower in the morning guy, so I like to get up. First thing we do is take a shower, and I want to have a cup of coffee. And lately, for about the last 6 weeks, I go over to the local gas station at Horizons, and I get me a chicken biscuit with ranch, and that's kind of my.
Whew, you're ruining that biscuit.
Oh man,
my wife's sitting at home going, yes, yes.
They make it with the buttermilk. It's unbelievable ranch, and then just get my day started. I like to get to the field house, especially this time of year. I like to get there about an hour, 45 minutes before the players get there to get everything ready. So when they walk in, we're ready to rock and roll and get into our routine. But I think part of being an educator, part of being a coach is I'm very routine oriented.
Yeah, most coaches that I know are.
Well, now I hope my wife and I talk about it all the time. My dad, he did it for so long. I mean, he has a daily itinerary of what's going to take place at every point in time of the day, and I can feel that in me at times, and I'm hoping that I can just continue to not have to be that oriented. But I mean, he spent 40 years of his life answering to an itinerary and having every second of the day planned out.
All right, this next one's going to be a little break from it, and I hope it causes you to smile a little bit. Tell us a childhood memory that you think a family member would tell about you. Something funny.
All right. Probably the one that would stick out the most, and my kids have this same trait, which is so funny, is used to, whenever we would go out to eat, I would always pick the most expensive thing on the menu, whether it be a steak or whether it be a lobster. And I didn't get it all the time, but I would pick it out. And my dad used to tell me, if there's anything on the menu that says market price, that's the thing that you're going to pick. And it's so funny because my kids are the exact same way. They like to be adventurous with what they eat, and but that would make them laugh big time. They used to call me market price when we go to a nice restaurant.
Well, that's not what I was expecting to hear, but I'm glad to get another story in. And I told you I had something special for you. So for the next 9 minutes, I want you to listen, because I asked somebody else to tell us some funny stories about you. Test 1, 2. Here we go. Well, let me just, matter of fact, let me go somewhere else. I got it saved in a different place. It sounds a little bit better. If I can see my own phone here. There it is. There it is.
Well, I'll start with a funny story that
Oh, wow.
happened
That's Dad.
during the early years of Joseph's life, probably 5, 6, 7, 8 years old. And we used to go visit my parents in Florence, Alabama, while we lived in Georgia, and also while we lived in Columbus, Ohio, when we were at Ohio State. My dad got up early, and Joseph loved his pops, and would get up with him, and my dad would make the runs to the donut shop at 5 and then he'd go to coffee shops, and then he'd go to the farmer's market, and then he'd end up at a bunch of retirees and eat in a drugstore and play a game. And we didn't know what they were doing. But anyway, to make a long story short,
poker.
He would come back home and tell his mom and I all the adventures that he and Pops had had that day, whether they'd go watch the guy run a trot line or whatever. And
we were jug fishing.
the one funny story was when he came back and started telling Carol and I about Pops and the retirees at the drugstore in Florence would play liar's poker, and he tried to teach us how they played liar's poker. So the events with my dad when we were at home in Florence, and he would get up early in the morning, and those 4 or 5 hours was obviously a bonding time with his granddad, but it was, he knew how to trade knives, and he got an education that you don't get in the classroom. Another somewhat funny story was when he was a little guy, I'm saying 2 or 3 years old, he was shot Christmas with his mom. And she told me about this later, that he was this and say, hey, I want that for Christmas. Hey, Mom, I think I want that for Christmas. So he started naming off all this stuff. And, she kept answering him back, well, Joseph, I don't know that we can afford that. I don't really know that we can afford that. So like all parents, we end up getting all the stuff that he wanted.
I remember this.
And as we're sitting there unwrapping his Christmas presents and getting all the stuff that he had wished for, he looked at me and his mom and said, Mom, I didn't know Daddy had all that kind of money. and of course that broke us up a little bit. And then, Joseph was a typical young guy growing up and moving every 6 years from, Jacksonville, Alabama through to Athens, and then on to Columbus, Ohio, and then to Jonesboro, Arkansas. And he had the normal adventures. But I guess one of the funnier things was when Carol and I were out of town, and we told the guys, and I say the guys, he's got a brother that's 2 years younger, and they were both in high school at the time. And kind of the trend was to while your parents were out of town, to have a party at the parents that weren't home.
Don't listen to that, Chris.
Anyway, they had it all planned out, and they're very bright young guys, so they had everything covered. They blocked the driveway, and we lived in a golf course community, and they had golf carts at the country clubhouse where they could come up, and everybody could drive up in golf carts and all that kind of stuff, and go through the basement door and all this kind of stuff. And then they had 2 cars parked in the driveway where nobody could pull into the driveway. So he didn't want any neighbors to know anything that was going on there. And so we didn't. We got back home the next day, and about the middle of the day, we get a phone call, and it had rained that day in Jonesboro, Arkansas, and the neighbor next door, one of the guests at their party went through the front yard and tore up a sprinkler system and tore up their turf for their yard because he avoided the driveway. And, just a good example of a typical 16, 17-year-old prank. And, but, James, Joseph was very passionate about what he did. He's a good student. He loved athletics. He loved all that stuff. And he went to Auburn, and his mom and I were proud of him that he left Jonesboro, Arkansas, and drove 7 hours to to Auburn, Alabama, and did not know one soul there. And he had met at that time Tommy Tuberville, and he was going to work in the athletic department. So I worked in football, and he got there early when they started 2-a-days, and he didn't know one person in Auburn. And we were glad of that because we wanted him to get out and learn a little self-discipline. And, we felt like part of going away to school was being out on your own and practicing what you'd been taught for 18 years. So that was a lot of fun. And by the way, James, on the way there, he called me as he was driving through Mississippi, and he got a speeding ticket. So that kind of topped off the trip.
By myself.
But that's about nothing really out of the ordinary for a young guy growing up with two brothers. His dad was in sports, and he loved sports, and he was like me from the standpoint of when he entered college, he chose a field and stuck with it. He wanted to be a coach from the get-go, just like I did. So there was no use in picking another major and then changing to education. He just started out in education and ended up in education. Absolutely. And that about finished up on stories. But I do wish that, James, I appreciate you calling. I appreciate you sharing a little bit about Joseph to your listeners. But also, I want to say I hope you guys have a great show tonight.
Thank you, Coach. I appreciate your time.
Wow.
It's always a joy to talk to that guy, man. I'm telling you that ever since I'll never forget the very first time I met him. You guys were playing Randolph at home year before last, and I just I try to. I'm friendly with everybody, and I walk up and I'm walking by, and there's something over there. Like, how you guys doing? Your mom was there. She's like, "Oh, we're doing good." And I saw Bailey, and your dad turns around, and I said, "How are you, sir?" He said, "I'm doing great." And he saw my Mud Creek shirt. He said, "You the preacher at church?" And I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "Well, I'm Joe Hollis." I was like, "That's funny because I know Joe Hollis." He's like, "I'm his dad." I'm like, "Oh, okay." I get it. We stood there and talked for probably 30 minutes. Man, I felt like I'd, left a doctor's office, been sitting there listening to a lecture about football. Guy had me enamored. He's a really, really fun guy to talk to.
Well, that's the real Coach Hollis. I'm just riding coattails, but my dad's always been my hero and was from when I was a little kid, and the stories, the love he had for the game, the love he had for his family, and the experiences that we got to have, Gosh, I can't believe he told that Auburn story. Yeah, I had blocked that out of my memory that I got a speeding ticket on the way down there. But yeah, it's one of those things. We try to teach our kids. I try to teach the players be comfortable being uncomfortable, and it's a really hard skill set. And I thought there was a time I wanted to stay close to home, and I wanted to go to the local university, and I'm not so sure that my dad didn't want that as well. He was the head football coach and athletic director there. I could be very well taken care of and get to have those experiences, and he would get to share them with me. But just like my wife, my mom, she wanted me to go and grow up. And I wasn't a fan of Auburn. I was only a fan of the teams that my dad coached for. And I went down there and drove, didn't know anybody. Had the first day I was supposed to show up, and I got there an hour early to show up at the athletic complex, and nobody was there. And that was the time where we had the Nokia phones, and you could only use them from like up until 9 o'clock in the morning, and then during the day you couldn't use them because the fee was so high on them, and then you had to wait till 9 o'clock at night and you could use them. And I remember I called. I was nervous. Nobody was there. A guy was supposed to meet me there. An old school coach was supposed to meet me, and I was probably as high on his priority list as nothing, and he didn't even show up. And I didn't know what to do, and I called home and I said, I think I'm just going to get in my car and come back. And they were like, that's not even an option. Go around the building and see if you can find a door open. And I found a door open, and I went inside, and I found some guys about my age. And, I started, I met them. They were very similar to me, and they had the same want to. Some of them just wanted to be a part of a football program. Some of them wanted to learn the inner workings, and I knew that's what I wanted to do. And it turned out being the best thing that ever happened to make me develop as a person. Being out there and experiencing that on my own, and there was nothing to fall back on. He says 7 hours, but they were in Jonesboro. It was almost 9 hours.
Oh, wow.
And you weren't getting to anybody, because I used to drive. My Mima and Pops lived in Florence, and that used to be the halfway point for me. My Pops had passed away, but I would stop in Florence on the way back to Arkansas from Auburn, and I'd spend the night with my Mima, and she'd have banana pudding and meatloaf. She'd have all my favorites. She would have them cooked, ready to go from the time I got there. And now she loved me probably more than any human being. Kind of like my kids' nanny loves them, and my parents love them. Like she would wait for that visit, and she would have everything ready. And even when I was in college, we didn't talk a lot on the phone, but I was showing my youngest. We've been going to a lot of baseball games lately, and last 2 baseball games we've been with the Trash Panda. We've gotten foul balls, and Kason I told him that I did the same thing with my dad, and I still have those foul balls, and they're in a lockbox at the house. And we sat there and we're going through that, and just the memories and the experience and having all that around me, growing up, I was very fortunate and very blessed to be, because a lot of people don't get to live that life. I don't apologize for it. It was difficult, because not having a home base was not the easiest. Not being able to be around family members, because all my mom's family's from Port St. Joe, Florida. My dad's family's from Florence, Alabama. So when we're living in Arkansas and Ohio, we weren't near anybody, so you got to see cousins and aunts and uncles and grandparents, once, maybe twice a year. But I was very fortunate to be able to have those experiences and those awesome memories, and now seeing my kids getting to experience not the same life, because we now have a home base and we absolutely love it, and it's coming up on 10 years of being here and being a part of the community. And, I love that, and I love having the opportunity to give my kids these unique experiences.
Yeah. If you were to write a book saying you had to start tomorrow, what would that book be about?
I've said for years, the coaches will be laughing if they're listening, because I've said for years the day-to-day things that happen at North Jackson High School with our students and our coaches and our players. You can't make some of this stuff up, but it'd probably just be like, it would be about teaching. I think at the end of the day, teaching is really my passion, and it's not really teaching in the classroom. I'm probably a very average classroom teacher, but teaching things that I picked up about life, things that have helped me or my family along the way, and being able to share that with guys and still get the same results that the old school guys would get. But, I would say it would definitely be about that. And I take that back to my first full-time job as a college coach. I worked for a guy who's the head coach at Samford now, Chris Hatcher, but he was at Georgia Southern at the time. And, he was the hottest thing in coaching. He got his first head coaching job at 25 at Valdosta State, won a national championship by age 30. And I got to be on his staff, and they gave me I think I had the same job that Will Muschamp had when he worked for him. He was a young coach with him at Valdosta, and then Kirby Smart followed up. And my job, I was in charge of all the punishment. At how old was I? 25, 26 years old. I was in charge of any time anybody screwed up, they had to answer to me, and I had to do all the punishment. And I mean, I was not a nice person. I mean, I was mean to these guys because I was miserable for having to get up at 4:30 in the morning and having to punish somebody. And he called me in one day and he said, "Joe, I need you to know this. The best thing you can do with these guys is you need to rule them with an iron fist, but it needs to be covered in a velvet glove." And that has always stuck with me. And I try to use it. You know, you can push kids hard, and kids want to be pushed. But at the same time, they got to know you love them. They got to know that you care about them, and it can't be something fake. It's got to be genuine.
Right.
And I strive to do that every day. But no, probably back to the original question, since I'm great at getting off topic, is it would probably be just the things I've picked up along the way, the helpful little things on living life and making good decisions. And I'm lucky. I've been very lucky, you know, in the way that I've been able to grow up and the experiences I've had. But, you know, it's also about I've been very fortunate to work for and be around and experience good people. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I can only attribute that to God and luck and everything involved, because I've had some really good leaders around me, and they've inspired me, and I like to try to do the same.
Yeah. Somebody asked me one time, what kind of book would somebody write about me if they were my enemy? What would my enemy write about me?
Ooh, they'd have a lot to say about me for sure.
We won't go too far.
No. You know, I can get ultra competitive, and I can have a side to me that it can scare people when it comes out, and I've tried to temper that over the years. But yes, you get me in that arena, in that competitive environment. I mean, the fans at North Jackson will know if there's a time in a game that I think our kids have been wronged, especially by officials, I'm going to.
I can vouch for that.
I'm gonna protest.
I actually can vouch for that.
and you help, but I try to get better at that. But yes, in that moment, now they would write that. You know, I'm sure there's been some guys called some dirty words or had some things said to them that weren't very Christian or very nice of me. But you know that I chalk that up to that's part of my DNA that I haven't been able to overcome all the time yet.
All right, funny question. If you could only eat one meal for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Oysters.
Oh.
No question. Oh. I love oysters. My wife knows I love oysters. If there's anything, whether it's Father's Day or whether
sure it's going to be ribs, man.
Oh, I love ribs too, but no, fresh oysters on the half shell. Oh, it doesn't get much better than that.
My wife said gross. People are putting puke in faces.
Oh, I'm sure.
Until we're in Alabama, baby.
But now I do have a rule with oysters, and I don't like to eat them if I can't see the water.
Okay.
So if I can't see,
so a mud puddle out back.
I don't like to go in the middle of Alabama and just get some raw oysters. Now I'll eat them fried or grilled, but I'm not going to eat them just on the half shell if I can't see the water.
If you could have coffee with one historical figure, who would it be?
I'd have to say Jesus.
There we go.
I mean,
I know.
There would be so many questions, and you know, just so how the only person that was infallible would do this for all of us, like so selfless, and not just do it for the direct people that he knew, but to do that for all of mankind, and to ask so very little of us in return, like I would love to have that conversation. I'm also would love to have the conversation of what went on for those 20 years that led to the development and all the experiences he had within that. You know, we don't have those documents, and we're not able, you know, we get a few stories from when he was a child, but not many. And then, you know, he's starting the ministry, and I would, gosh, whew. But no question, that would be who I would want to talk to.
Well, that's a good segue into this next thing, because I got somebody that wants to talk to you, and I promised him we'd bring him on. He was going to try to be here live, but he couldn't.
Hey, what's up?
Brother Dustin.
Hey, guys.
He had no idea I was calling you, Doc.
Oh, well, he probably would have told you not to.
No, sir. No, it's – man, how you doing?
I'm good, bud. How are you?
Living the dream every day.
All right, let me introduce this. Dustin Henshaw, for those of you that are listening. Next to being one of my best friends on the planet, Dustin's also I followed, I guess, his footsteps, being the chaplain at North Jackson. He was the last one you had before I came, and
they finally got a good one, Doc. Finally got a good one.
I doubt that, bro. They stepped down. They had to take what was left over when you stepped away.
No, we've been blessed with both of you, and our kids are better for it. It's been unbelievable.
I probably never told you this, Coach, but when I first finally told you yes, I'd come. I gave up. I gave up something that I really love to do, but I told you, the ministry opportunities always have to come first, and that whole first year, I was just coming up there, preaching on at Copper Top, and then I'd come down to Scottsboro and do PA, and I wanted to puke the whole time. I felt like I was letting the Lord down, and as much as I loved what I was doing, I knew that I love something. I love preaching, and I love ministering it even more. So I talked to Dustin. Dustin can tell you I've been his ear so much because I was scared to death about being a chaplain. And Dustin laughs about it. He didn't help matters. he was saying, well, Doc, you're going to have all this and this. I'm getting called traitor right now. Tater the traitor on the air.
Yeah. It'll be all right. Hey, listen, the first year I came to Stevenson, the pastor, Coach Rose, was a member of the church I came to. And I was the president of the Pee Wee League in Scottsboro. So I would coach. So I literally would practice Scottsboro kids all week, go to North Jackson in the afternoons, and stay till I went to Scottsboro to coach Little League kids. And I would wear North Jackson stuff on Friday night, put Scottsboro stuff on Saturday, and I was like the Apostle Paul, man. I was in a strait betwixt two. I didn't really know what in the world I was going to do, but God worked all that out. And I still have great relationships with kids that I got to be a part of their lives in Scottsboro too. So it was a good thing. I just got to be a part of both for a little while, but Stevenson just kind of became home. I still consider it kind of my second home, really, to be honest with you. A lot of lifelong friends I made down there, being around people. And James will remember I told you, I probably did tell you a lot of stuff, I guess. Probably most of it was useless, but I hope anything was, I told you just be yourself and hang out with the kids, because they really didn't care how much you knew till they know how much you care about them.
Absolutely.
And that was my biggest thing. Especially getting in there the first year was kind of, they kind of looked at me like a calf looking in your gate, like, what's a preacher hanging out? What's Rose got a preacher for? Well, I think they kind of figured it out. Rose was a butt cheer and I was the backpack.
Well, but, easy now. I've seen you in action.
Well, now, yeah, I have some great stories. I have chewed some kids out.
I'm sure there's some kids at Cornerstone right now going, yeah, he's a little bit of both.
Yeah, I'm a little bit of both. Probably a few of them guys at North Jackson.
Sure.
when Peak was there, when Coach Peak was there, Titus hadn't played a lot of football, and they came from Scottsboro. And we were at East Limestone, and Titus come off the field, and he just came up to me, and he's like, "Rev, this guy's punching me. Like every play, he's punching me." And I was like, "Dude, just punch him back." Well, I didn't know, the whole deal. I mean, I was just being like, just come off the line and punch him. I didn't really think Titus meant he was punching him. And so next thing I know, man, there's a yellow flag going up, and they call Titus, tell Coach Peak, hey, it's, called his number. So he comes over and Peak is reaming him out. And if y'all know Coach Peak, like, if Pete's voice goes to another octave, he's mad. Like, when he hits the high note, like, when Coach gets that second high note, it's like, oh, God, he's mad. And he's blistered Titus. And he's like, what in the world do you think you're doing? And Titus looked at him just calm as could be and said, preacher told me to. And so I was like, Coach, I did. That's my bad, And, I did. I said, I didn't really mean punch him, but Titus took me literally. But, no, I love Coach. I caught a little bit of your dad. A little bit there at the end, last little bit, heard a few stories. I just walked off. I was going to come down there and be with you guys. James knows that, but I kind of committed to do a little fundamental camps for our 7 and 8 year old or 12U and under girls, softball girls at Cornerstone, just to kind of help build our program. My little girl's involved in it. We're just trying to build it up. And it was our first night, so I literally have been on the softball field for about 2 hours with a bunch of 8 to 10-year-old girls. So my patience has been tested and my voice is a little weak. Right?
Well, hey,
but
I'd rather do. I just finished year 3 and now we're doing some travel ball and 12U softball. And I tell you this, I will take softball over 6U T-ball any day of the week.
Yes, sir. Me too. Me too. And I've learned, it hit me this year that, like, it made me have a whole new respect because, like, my girl, that's her second year, my daughter, playing 8U, and it's like it hit me, and I don't know why it just hit me, but like once you go to 60 foot, you stay 60 foot all the way through college. Mm-hmm. Those kids just get bigger, faster, and stronger. The bases don't move back like baseball.
No,
and it's like it gives you a lot of respect for young ladies that play softball at a high level. The reaction time and everything else are crazy. I mean, it's really a neat sport, and I understand why it's growing the way it is with young ladies. It's a pretty cool sport to be a part of. So.
Well, if you would have asked me 4 years ago about softball, I'd say I'm just a dad that goes out and watches it, and now it's become. I mean, it's not up there with football, but it's pretty close. Like just the watching them grow and how good the athletes are, and we're in an area where women's softball and from middle school from 8 years old all the way through high school, like we have got some great athletes, and they get after it, and
yeah, no doubt,
and they're super competitive, and it's yes, I'm like you, I never thought that I would be into it at all, and it's become one of my favorite things to do.
I tell you,
it is.
Dustin talked about a minute ago about how passionate he gets about things. Last year during the jamboree, when we went out to Sylvania, Adam Gilbert was out there. He's an assistant at Pisgah, and I've known Adam since he was a little kid, and he and I are good friends now. But I'll never forget when we were at halftime of that jamboree. We were walking to the locker room, and I knew you guys were going to do your thing. I was just kind of peeling back, waiting on everybody to come out crying so I could, pat their shoulder and tell them to be okay. But I saw Adam over there, and he's looking at me, and his head goes to the side, and he says, of all the people I never thought I'd see in that red and black.
Yeah.
I said, man, of all the people that I never thought would be in it.
Right.
And he said, I still remember what you said. I said, yeah, I do too.
Well, Doc, when I told you that place, it has a tendency it'll get a hold of your heart a little bit, and, well, not a little bit, it did mine a lot. When I got out of the Marine Corps, mid-90s, it was the end of Coach Lawley's, run there at North Jackson, and, man, what a thing he had built there. And then Coach Rose came in, and Jennifer had a lot of cousins that played in that program, like Jonathan Guess and Benjamin Johnson, and a lot of other her cousins been in that program. And so I kind of just started going to North Jackson games just to support them, you know. And Scottsboro was good during that time too, you know. Coach Morris and Coach Keel and those guys, you know, they had Tremu and Corey Wellington and Gary Griffith and all those guys. And, you know, so that was such a neat time for me to move back to this area because I'd moved over to Mississippi when I was 12 years old. And to go to R.D. Hicks or Trammell, and I know Coach Hollis was a little bit come in after that time. But I know you remember, Brother James, like if you were going to get a seat, man, you better get there at 5 o'clock.
There were times. I remember 3 years in a row, Scottsboro and North Jackson played, and both teams were ranked in the top 10.
Yeah.
And
well, we're hoping to get that back.
It was
oh yeah,
man, it was last second field goals, and
yeah.
You know, I mean, it was that kind of atmosphere.
Yeah, I remember sitting in R.D. Hicks, and it was in the second quarter, and they were still waiting out on the highway there, trying to get in the parking lot, bro. And the stadium's packed, you know. And then I just got to be friends and be a part of guys on both sides of that deal, anyway, you know. And me and you both, Brother James, are, and I know Coach Hollis is too. But North Jackson is it's a cool place, and I knew if anybody loved that place and deserved to have a shot to run that program. And I'm not telling you this because Coach Hollis is there. I've told you this, Brother James. Mm-hmm. I felt like Joe Hollis was a guy that he wanted to be here. He loves the community. It ain't like he couldn't go anywhere else or be a part of something else. And that's one thing I love about Coach Hollis. He's a great leader, but he's really a very humble guy. If you ever just get around him, I mean, he could name drop a whole lot of people. He just in conversations, he'd be talking to me about Mike Tomlin, you know, people that he knew because his dad gave. I think I'm right, Coach. Your dad gave Mike Tomlin his first coaching job in college. Am I right?
He did.
Am I right on?
He was a graduate assistant at Memphis, and my dad hired him to be the receivers coach at Arkansas State.
Wow, and so. Coach Hollis knows a lot of people, but you know, and a typical man, and probably even Dustin Henshaw, I'd probably name drop a little bit. Say, let me tell you, you know what I mean. And Coach ain't like that. But I know, and if you're listening to this, I know one thing: if your kid plays for Coach Hollis, he's gonna love them and he's gonna treat them right, and he's gonna show them that he loves his family, he loves his kids. And guys, I love to win and lose as much as anybody, but at the end of the day, that's what's going to matter. The small percentage of those guys that ever play after high school, that's great for them. And while I was at North Jackson, even before I got there, we had our fair share of those guys. You know, the Ollie's and Tanays and Cams, and you know, we could go on and on. George Summers, you know, and I know I'm probably missing some. That's just off the top of my head. But at the end of the day, one thing that I always loved about Coach Rose, Coach Peak, and Coach Hollis is they get the bigger picture. That one day these guys are going to have to be dads and husbands, employees, you know, hopefully contributing members of their communities. And they worry most of all about their souls because we all know that we got a soul, and it's going to spend eternity somewhere. It's who we really are, you know. And that's a cool thing. There's a lot of I tell my guys at Cornerstone all the time, like, they hear a lot of North Jackson stuff because that's just where I was at and I saw it done right. You know, I saw that, hey, you work hard and you do things the right way and you develop that culture of family and, you know, and you cheer your brother on and you pick him up when he gets his tail whipped and then you tell him you're not going to get your tail whipped no more, you know, because I'm going to be here to make sure it doesn't happen. And I've developed a lot of lifelong friends just because Mark Rose approached me one day after church and said, hey, I need a chaplain. And I feel like that you need to be, you know, that you need to be our chaplain. And I was like you, Brother James. I've never done that before. But, man, I was thinking today, I was just hanging out here at the house between workouts this morning and everything. And I was just thinking about the times that, you know, I've seen, I hope people don't need to hear this thing hearing it, but anyway, I don't really care. That I've seen 8 or 10 guys walk up in front of 70 of their teammates and go, hey, I gave my heart to Jesus today.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know, or man, I need you guys to pray for me. You know, or we went and went to funeral homes because kids have lost loved ones, classmates, and things like that. And I've watched, and Coach Hollis gets it because he does it. But I've been blessed to see guys who understand that it's more than football. It's a lot more than that. And as much as I love football, I'm blessed that I've been able to be around the guys like Coach Hollis and Coach Peak and, a lot of those guys, Coach Houston. And, man, I could go on and on, guys, that I've got to be around and that I'm a better man just for being around these guys. They've helped me as a man, and something that our society has tried to attack is like biblical manhood. Like you can be a man. Men are supposed to be men. And men fight wars, and men fight fires, and men fight crime. And I think football teaches a lot of life. And my son's a basketball coach, but nothing against basketball, but I think football teaches probably as much or more than any sport that there is. I think it teaches a lot of life lessons.
Absolutely.
And it develops a bond that you don't necessarily get, because when you're running into car crashes 50 times a day in practice and 50 times on Friday night, and you're hitting each other and then hitting other people, it bonds you in a way that probably no other sport does, Not that I'm against other sports. I think kids will play all of them if they want to, but that's just me. But I'm sorry I couldn't make it tonight, but it was when James asked me, I was like, I'll try. And then I had a couple of my coaches couldn't. They were going to help me with doing this little Tuesday night fundamental stuff that couldn't be there. And so when I got out, the first thing I did was flipped on my phone, and I thought, well, I'm going to continue to listen to these guys while I drive home. So,
well, let me interject for a second, because the same thing that you're feeling is what I know to be true, and what I know our kids are feeling as well. We have been tremendously blessed. A lot of people don't understand that they see Coach Rose and they don't understand how much he got it. And what he did was he took what was on the college level. I had worked at 3 different high schools before I came to North Jackson, and we didn't have chaplains. We didn't have somebody around talking to our kids. And, we were truly the ones that were blessed. Brother Dustin, when you were there and you were pouring into these kids, and I understand that Coach gave you the podium and the opportunity, but, at the end of the day, that's what it's about. And just by sure grace, just being able to come out here and meet Brother James and come to his church and be a part of it. And I knew where your heart was, and I knew you were torn, and it happened to just lay perfectly. And our kids are continued to be blessed because, let's be honest, the biggest hire that a head coach makes, in my opinion, is who is going to be that spiritual coordinator, who is going to be that person pouring into your kids when they succeed and when they fail. And it's been so nice to just have not only great men, but great lovers of Christ and great communicators to be around our kids, because like I said earlier, all our kids have a story, and they need someone, and at times it can't be the head football coach. Sometimes there needs to be a barrier and someone that they can go talk to where they feel safer. And that's something that you guys have been able to provide, and it's going to last for years till these guys die, and they're still going to tell their kids about it. And I hope it's something that, I hope it never changes, and as long as I'm the head coach here, it won't, because it's such an important position, and just to see the opportunities that it's giving you. You're reaching double the amount of kids you were able to reach with the football program now, and having that. Not only do you have an impact on them in the classroom, but you've also got your own ministry, and then you've got them out there on the athletic field. Like, these kids are going to be able to understand what men of Christ are like and what they should act like, and it's just been a blessing all the way around, and
wow.
Like, we couldn't ask for more of what we've got out of you and James.
Well, I appreciate that. It's when I knew we were in the right direction is when when kids, because kids are not 15 to 18-year-old guys. They got a facade they're trying to put up anyway,
sure.
And especially football players. But when they start coming to you, and about year 2 or 3, I really knew, like, hey, these guys, they're starting to trust me, because when they start coming to you going, hey, Rev, I need to talk to you, and it's on a Thursday after walkthroughs, and they're like, hey, and I think my girlfriend might be pregnant, or man, my mom strung out on drugs, or a lot of these people, and I don't want to say these people, that sounds derogatory, I don't know. A lot of people sit in the stands, or they don't know, and they automatically make judgments about kids, and they don't know that it's taking a lot of those guys everything they got just to keep their lives together because of what they got going on at home or whatever, much less to try to play football at a high level, and I remember Coach Peak and those guys, especially my early years there, like Coach Rose. I mean, we'd go get guys out of bed to bring them to work out. 5 o'clock in the morning, Coach Peak would be out. And some guys, their home lives were so bad, they might be sleeping in different apartments. And Coach Peak didn't even know which one they were in, and he'd be on 2 or 3 doors, wake people up and get, I know that was a pleasant experience, 5 o'clock in the morning. But,
it hadn't changed.
I see. But, and some people say, oh, they do that because you need to win football games. No, you do that because you hope that kid is somehow going to be better than maybe he's going to have a better life than what he's being dealt right now. Because if you can teach him, hey, you got to get up every day and go to work, and and you got to be accountable, and those things are stuff that goes with them forever. And and as I went on there, my roles kind of increased a little bit, I guess. At different times, just I'd had a little bit of coaching duties here, there, whatever, just kind of helping. My favorite time was when Ivan kind of drafted me and said, hey, you're going to help me coach defensive line. If y'all know Ivan Richards, man, there's never a dull moment in the world when Ivan's around.
Not one.
He was coming to my church, and we had so much fun. And then I ended up coaching D-line at section when Caleb moved out there. And first day we went on the practice field, I painted UFOs. And those D-linemen were like, what are these? I said, they're UFOs. Why do you call them UFOs? I said, I don't know. Coach Richards calls them UFOs, so that's what they are. They're UFOs, and all they were, centers, guard, tackle,
Mm-hmm.
You know what they are. But
yeah.
they're like, Coach, why do you call them UFOs? I don't know. Coach Richards calls them UFOs, so that's what we're going to call them too. And it does just things like that I always remember, and it does. I just appreciate you guys, Bro James. I love you. And I probably brag on you more than I should. I don't want to give you the big head, but I appreciate you, Coach. Well, me and you both, bro. We're in the same club with that. But I appreciate you too, Coach Hollis. And it was hard. I know, and God worked all that out when I was dealing with everything that God was opening the doors up for me to do at Cornerstone. I just couldn't do both anymore,
Right.
And in my heart, it was kind of like telling my home no or telling my family no. And that, as a man, you don't tell your family no. That's just not what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to do whatever your family needs you to do. But I had to realize that, it's okay. And then, and it's kind of cool that God would take definitely one of the closest friends, the guy's about like a brother to me, and put him right in that position and let you guys kind of cross paths. And like you said, Coach Hollis, that was all a God thing. I mean, if I couldn't be there myself, I thought, well, what better person that I know is going to walk in that field house with those guys than Brother James. And so I'm proud for him. And I'm just proud for you guys. And I know y'all do things the right way, both of you. And that means a lot to me. And in the long run, we all going to win if we keep doing things the right way. And those kids will win too, however many football games they win. I don't know. That's not up for us to decide, but it is up for us to decide what kind of men we teach them to be.
No doubt.
If it just all meant Westminster last year, he probably wouldn't be saying that.
Well, listen now, Coach. Coach Hollis will tell you, and I won't go into a lot of details, but there was a night at Fairview High School in the gymnasium. Coach Hollis had to calm me down a little bit. He had to be my calm. He had to calm me down a little bit.
We swapped roles for a minute. You had to do it to me, and that was a night of trials and tribulations for sure.
It was, and Coach had to it was role reversal. He's like, Brother Dusty, and he became my counselor like instantly. It was like he was calming me down. And
Will Sims last year, he comes up to me on the sideline, puts his hand up on my shoulder, and he goes, "Hey, preach, just want to remind you, you're a man of God." Don't hit him in the face.
Yeah. I'll tell y'all a story. My second game, I think it was my second game in North Jackson. First or second, we were playing Buckhorn. And I hope Coach Schrader is listening to this because he about got me in trouble that night. They made a call. Coach Schrader was chasing the ball down the field, and they made a call. And Coach Schrader, he in his own way let that referee know that was a dumb call, And the ref turns around and throws a flag at my feet. Boom! I mean, because I was standing right by Coach Schrader, and Rose come running down the sideline. What's going on? And he was like, that dude, he said exactly, I can't say, I mean, I probably could, but I'm a Baptist, I'd be saved in water, but I'm not going to say what Coach, I knew what Coach Schrader said. And if you know Coach Schrader, when he gets hot, he'll let you know it. Anyway, so coaches, and he's like, he said this about me, or called me this. And Rose looked at him and said, that's my chaplain. And it was hilarious. I thought Rose was fixing to make me run bleachers or flop afterwards, And Shredder's like, no, he didn't say that. I did. Shredder said, no, I said it. Afterwards, I told Coach Schrader in the locker room, I said, you said it, but I amened you. I was agreeing with you. It was a bad call. But it's a lot of good times, and a lot of fun times. I never would have had it. I've been able to be part of North Athletic. And, still love the place and root for do good, especially always Coach Hawk. I did even more when I'm you guys, but love you, but thank you, friend, and me love me as they means to me because the Bible says if a man's got a friend, he's got something that's very valuable. And I know we don't always talk every day, but I know if I needed either one of you guys, I could pick up the phone and you'd be there and help me do whatever you could. And I hope you know the same thing for me. I do whatever you need to me. So, but I don't want to keep you guys. I know y'all got more important things to talk about than me. But
I appreciate you, man. I appreciate you coming on.
Yes, sir. Love you, and I'm sorry I couldn't make it down there. But I got a face for radio, so this is probably better. Anyway, but you guys have a blessed night. Love you guys, and y'all holler at me, Coach. I got a teacher schedule now, kind of, so we go eat lunch.
Absolutely, let's do it,
man. That's one thing I'm jealous, that Dustin had that I don't have. He was full time in the ministry at that time, so he had his days were, he was more available. Then that's the only thing about having a full-time job is the amount of opportunities that I have to miss. But you got to do what you got to do.
You do, Brother James, and it was a blessing. And I ain't bragging on Edgefield. I was pastoring there at the time. They just looked at me being at that school and being with that football team as an extension of Edgefield Baptist Church. You know what I mean? And they just looked at it like that, and man, it was cool. It was very cool because they not only didn't belittle me for it, they supported me in it. Even told me, hey, go get it. I signed up to sub. If they let you sub, anything you can do, get in school. So I started subbing at Stevenson Middle School and in North Jackson, some, and it just gave me another avenue to just get to love on kids and be around kids. And I guess God knew all that, but if I hadn't went to seminary and done all that, I'd have been a coach and a teacher. Anyway, now I'm just kind of getting to do the best of both worlds at Cornerstone. So it's pretty cool. But you guys hang in there, and I will get off here because I'm sure y'all got other things to talk about. But I do love you both. And again, I hope y'all know if you need me, just pick up the phone and call. Love now we got witnesses. See you guys.
See ya.
See you, Doc. Thank you. Old Doc, man. You know, a lot of people don't know. I think Brian, you know, tried to get him to come back up here. He was going to, you know, spot him some cash and get him back up in here to start a church up here. And, you know, he couldn't do it. And then when the Lord, you know, put this, you know, started this year, you know, Dustin Once and For All kind of squashed that. And I'll never forget him calling me saying, you know, the opportunity was there, but I just, you know, number one, I'm happy where I'm at. Number two, I'm not gonna come in there and try to compete against, you know, one of my best friends in the whole world. He said, so he may show up down there, because I told him he needs to come down there with you, but he never did come, and it worked out like it was supposed to in the end. But you know, I have learned so much from Dustin, and you know, he and I are the same age. His mother was a member when he got to baptize her at my church. You know, she got right with the Lord down there at the church where I was pastoring at, and you know, that just made Dustin and I a whole lot closer.
Oh yeah.
And he used to tell me stories back before I knew who you were. He would tell me about how you'd catch him after he'd be preaching or speaking, or you know, just doing some sort of devotional or something with the team. And he said, man, I got all fired up, and I tell them you need to go down there and whip their butts and stuff like that, whip their tails and take them to the woodshed. And he said, you know, and Joseph would come up to me and say, man, you need to be doing something different, just small time, man. You need to, you know, you should be doing this in college somewhere or something. And Dustin have him all fired up, and he'd call me and be like, man, you know, it's like I was ready to go. And I thought he was crazy. And now, like, no. I find myself out there on the sidelines. I have to really, after that episode, that incident in Westminster, I have to really watch, you know, myself. I had to come back and tell the church about it the next week, and I'm like, you know, it's that easy. And it's because you get so invested in you know, when you perceive a wrong happening to somebody, you know, it just comes out of you. But I'll never forget that night. You know, you probably remember too. I was so grieved in my spirit about it that I wanted to apologize to the team for acting that way. And but that's the first night that Nick ever talked to me.
Really?
It was the first time he ever spoke anything to me directly. Was after I did that, and I'll never forget what he said. He said, you know, I just want to say I appreciate you caring enough about us to stand up for us, you know, right or wrong. That meant something to him. And I was looking around for somebody to slap at that point. I was like, if it had been anybody, an assistant or a volunteer.
But it's kind of the magic of North Jackson. Now, I knew of North Jackson before I started working there, because I worked with Coach Lally for 7 years at Auburn, and so he would tell me daily about Stevenson and North Jackson, but didn't understand it until I started to work here. And you know our kids on a day-to-day basis of what they go through, how hard they work, what they pour into it. And our community is not like any other out there. You know, Bobby Hicks tells me all the time, it's like Mayberry. And it really is. It's a unique place, and football is just an avenue to be able to communicate to these guys, to help mentor them, to teach them, to be there for them, because we have blue-collar, tough kids. They'll run through a brick wall for you. They need to know that you love them, but they also need to know that you'll run them until they puke if that's what the situation requires. Right. And, you know, it's just been – it's hard to describe, and I guess everybody that coaches here starts to understand it once you're here. And that's why we're able to – when guys do leave, we're able to have the opportunity to hire them back and to come back, because this place gets a hold of you and it don't let go. And you know, we've been so fortunate with with all of our kids, and this group we have coming this year, they're going to be no exception. Like, we have great kids. They all have different backgrounds, different things going on, but we might not be people in the numbers game, but they're going to be a group that is going to be hard to deal with because they're not going to quit.
Right. I was, I was raised and went to Scottsboro. I did my whole life was in Scottsboro. My mother actually went to Stevenson. She was a Panther.
Oh, okay.
My Uncle Jerry that comes
I think
here.
you've told me that.
Yeah, they all went to Stevenson. So it was just kind of natural. It's that huge rivalry, But then you get out of school and you start to work and you meet people. Well, when Dawn and I got married, I had 3 groomsmen, and 2 of them were from North Jackson. Just guys that I was close to, still talk to them, And you after it's over with, it's just all it was a rivalry. It's just. But when you sit in the locker rooms, it's much bigger than that.
Oh,
for a
yeah,
few minutes.
it is.
all the things that you hear, you find out 10 years later wasn't necessarily
exactly
the way it was told to you, but you were told what you needed to hear in the moment to go out and perform.
And some of those, and that's the experience that you got to be a part of it to understand it.
Absolutely.
And to be in there, and that's what's so cool about having guys that are around our program that have played here and have been here the entire time, and they know what their kid is experiencing here, and part of what we've tried to do as a coaching staff is we keep it simple, but all that stuff, it's who we are. It's a part of us, and so that's why we try to duplicate it, and that pride and that desire. We play out there by beautiful Indian Creek, and we got everything going on that practice field, and everybody knows that it doesn't rain on the practice field. It may rain everywhere around you, but if we've got practice going on that time, it's not going to rain. It's going to hold off until it's time at the end, and it's just a lot of fun.
Yeah, I have thoroughly enjoyed it, and I don't have, I say this a lot of times. I credit Greg Bell. After I got hurt, I played basketball, and then I worked for Greg part-time at the radio station. And then it was even after, I was grown, I was married, I went off this military time, I came back home. I was writing articles I was the Scottsboro beat reporter, I guess, for the North Jackson Progress for Larry Glass. And that led me to a relationship with a couple of guys with the other radio station, and that are no longer in Jackson County, but shameless plug for WWIC. But anyway, Greg one day in Kmart, we still had a Kmart then. I walked up on Greg, I'll never forget it. He said, "You gonna be working with them other guys this year?" And what he didn't know is I had pretty well decided that I was done with media. And he said, "Well, if you decide you don't want to work with them, I got a spot for you." So I was like, I want to work with Greg one more time, because I enjoyed working with him, for him as a kid, and I wanted to work with him, in a different role. So he brought me in, taught me how to keep up with stats, just running stats, not professional or anything, but just something to have enough to talk about, enough information to talk about. And just being in the booth with Greg. And then a few years down the road, he asked me to go do basketball with him. And that's where I learned what high school sports was really all about. I learned it more from a guy who cares about kids. I'll never forget what he told me. And this is one of the reasons that I really love being a chaplain. He said, for a few minutes of every time we were on the air calling one of these games, whether it's football, basketball, he does baseball, softball, different things. He said, for a few minutes, somebody's listening that can't be here, that would love to be here, that can't be here. Might be a mom or a dad or a grandparent that's in their last hour on the earth. and this is going to be something that brings joy to their life. Going to get to hear somebody's name called out, somebody they care about. Or maybe it's some kid that's going to come back 10, 15 years down the road and life's maybe not going so good, and they click on a podcast or a recording and, they hear these things. They're reminded of a better time in their life. He said this is some people's 15 to 20 minutes of fame. It's all they're ever going to get. It's important to me, not just as the business, but he said it was important to me that you make this all about the kids. This is about them. It's not about us. It's not about the coaches. It's not about the schools. It's about those kids. And I tell you, it was a very profound lesson for me, being able to work with him and learn about the things that I do or that I got to learn about. His way of doing things, I do this right here, what I do today, because of Greg. And because this whole making much of Jesus, all was birthed out of this learning process about doing things to make it about somebody else. If you really want to be happy, the most joy you'll ever find is living your life to make somebody else happy. I thought that was crazy. But now, I have asked you, and I want to see if it's changed since the last time I asked you. But when we started Mud Creek, our 10th service was their first time here. You came, it was our 10th church service. That was the first time. We had 48, and the reason I remember that is because we had 48 seats, and that was the first time we didn't have enough seats for everybody. We actually had people sitting outside and in the back, in metal chairs in the dark because we didn't have room. But I had members, regular people that had been coming that knew visitors were here, and they said, sacrifice what they would have rather have for visitors to come in. And that's when I knew, man, I really have work to do. If these people are going to invest, if they're willing to sacrifice what they want for somebody else to get something they need, then I need to be willing to do that, go all in. And that's what I did for the next year. I was all in. I worked every day up here. And, man, what a time that I had. I learned so much, but from somebody else looking in, like I knew how I saw it. And I shared that a lot. I was very active on social media about the journey and what we were doing and how we were going about it. But from the outside looking in, somebody else like yourself who's busy, you had so many other things going on. I'll never forget you telling me that part of the reason you came was, content, just things that you were hearing while you were here, but the opportunity to be a part of something that was grassroots. When you said it, it was a light bulb went off in my head, because I never really considered myself to be a grassroots, to ever be able to be affiliated or ever do anything from the ground up. And then it occurred to me a couple of months ago that came back to my mind, and I thought to myself, that's effectually Dustin and I actually were having a conversation, and not to downgrade anybody else or anything like that, but he said, if you had got the job when Rose left, things today would look
totally different.
Much different. Sometimes when you make decisions or other people are making decisions for you, you don't get to choose. You just get stuck with what you got, and you walk in, and then so that's effectively what you're doing now. And I know this is, it's year 3,
third year.
So, year 3 is going to look a whole lot different than year 1 looked. Year 2 looked different than year 1. What I learned from you is this last year, it's not about the W's and the L's. You can be a better team sometimes and not have as good a record, and just be a better team. There's so many other things that go in. Dustin was alluding to it again there a minute ago. There's so many other things that go into having something successful, being successful. You can't judge success off of just one area. I've told many people this, and Dustin, and he can attest to it, my wife, I have never seen anybody faced with some of the obstacles you guys were faced with last year, especially you as being the leader. All of the criticism, all the negativity, because on my end, what I was doing, well, I was getting, people were singing my praises. And I thought to myself, how do you handle that? Well, now I'm catching a little bit. So now, I drew from that, and I thought, all last year, even though things didn't go well, you were positive. You'd walk in after a loss, and you'd be positive. We did this. We got this to work on, that to work on. We're going to get back to work. We're going to do this Sunday. I don't ever remember seeing you just, and maybe you did when I wasn't looking, but I don't ever remember seeing you, break that character of, I've still got I've still got the stern. I'm still holding this thing. Believe in what you're doing. Let's, stay the course. Don't give up. Don't quit. Let's stay after it. Now I'm saying those things. So
well,
I appreciate that.
They're two different professions, but it's not really that different. Because you're in the public, you're involved with the community. There's going to be people that agree with you, and there's going to be people that disagree with you. There's nothing you can do about that.
Yeah.
But it was like what attracted us and what has been so helpful with our kids is you've always been yourself. And from the time we were out there on the concrete, sitting in the chairs, watching, having to bring in different things every week, you'd have a different contraption to block out the sun or keep the wind from coming in. But it was pure. There wasn't anything. It wasn't about collecting money. It wasn't about, and that's what resonated. And you've stayed true to that as you've continued to go. And coaching's the same thing. Like, don't get me wrong now. You may say I haven't shown those, and I try not to show those in front of the kids, but we all have those moments of doubt. We have those moments of, geez, why can't a break go our way? And that's where faith comes into play, that there's a plan. And as long as you can look in the mirror at the end of every day and know that you're caring about the people involved and you're trying, it's easy to put off blame.
Right.
But when you are the leader, it's your job to be that face in front of everyone and let them know, yeah, it might not be exactly how we wanted it to happen. Mm-hmm. But there are some things that we're in control of. We're in control of showing up, working our rear end off, putting ourselves in the position, and doing that over and over again. And things have a tendency and a way of working themselves out the way that it's supposed to.
Absolutely.
And it's hard. Yeah, and that helps having a background in faith and understanding that there's a bigger plan than any of us can conceive. Mm-hmm. But if you know that you're doing right by the people that are involved, and when you're talking with your wife or you're talking to yourself or you're praying, that you just go, I don't know why it's happening like this, but right now we're in a storm, and the only way to get through this storm is everybody's got to be in it together. Mm-hmm. And that's the job. And I was, I've been blessed to have leaders, and it doesn't always have to be the head coach. Sometimes it's the team chaplain. Sometimes it's the assistant coach that just has that positive, and it's so hard because you're so passionate about everything you're pouring into it. And when people want to criticize, you take it so personal.
Yeah.
Because they don't know. They don't know that you wake up at 3:00 in the morning and your brain can't turn off, and this is all you're thinking about. What can we do to change? What can we do to make it better? And you come to the realization, and that if you're doing things right, the people are going to come. The kids are going to be better people because of it. The community's going to come. I mean, look, that's what's happened here. I mean, it started where we were talking about before it went on. I remember vividly when you were talking about you had to make a run the day before, and you were up to 80 chairs, 165 here on Sunday. Like,
Yeah.
that's what it's about, and it'll continue. The criticism's never going to go away because people are involved. But as long as the ones that are involved with it, and you look in the mirror and you know, because the attractiveness to the church, especially here, we came to watch a baptism. We didn't come for any other reason. We stayed because of the message. We stayed because of you. We stayed because of the environment. And there wasn't an agenda being pushed, and there wasn't anything that came along with that. And that's what the attraction was. Because the hardest thing as a head coach in a small town is pick the church you go to.
Yeah.
That's been the death of many a coach is to get involved in that. But when it happens and you just become a part of it, and that's, I didn't know that you had a relationship with Dustin. I didn't until I started listening to you and I started hearing the message and then getting to know you and know your background. I mean, you guys are very kindred spirits just based off your life experience. A lot of similar experiences, a lot of that background that, you had kind of two choices. You could either quit, get tough, be a deadbeat, or you could punch your fist through it and be what you're supposed to be. And that, that's like a lot of our people around here.
Yeah.
And that's what makes this community so great. We have hardworking men and women, and we have kids. Some of our kids that, they have to work full time, and still they want to spend the time to come out there and participate in sports. And, especially in 2023,
right,
a lot easier to do something different. Mm-hmm. And our role, being in front and being in charge, is to surround these kids with as many people, or surround the church with as many people that understand what these roles are and what you're supposed to do. Like, football is very similar to the church, and you can teach how to be a man. How to be a man in a day and age where it's probably not the most popular thing.
Yeah.
I mean, you're going to get a lot of controversy when you bring that up, but, we're able to teach it. Now, football's no different than the church. It's under assault on a daily basis.
Yes.
I don't know where the game will be in 10, 15 years. They've slowly started taking parts of it out, and I think that'll continue. It's going to turn into, college football now is becoming professional football, and then that's going to trickle down, and the same thing's going to happen to the small town football athletic. It's under attack right now, and we've got to keep true to ourselves and true to what we know works, because everything's becoming sellout culture, and I'm worried when it gets to they're paying the college football players now. It's already happened in the state of Georgia. It's happened in the state of Tennessee. I got a few things I can't say live on here, but it's coming, and it's going to happen in Alabama. And what is that going to do to the small towns? The city schools, the bigger, the people that have the money that they can go get into, they're probably going to be okay. But, it's going to have an impact. And how do you defend against that? How do you prepare your kids to risk those temptations? Because when that starts happening, a lot of our guys, they're going to have opportunities elsewhere, and you've got to know that they want to stay because things are done the right way, and that's what makes us unique.
Yeah. Something Greg and I, we used to talk about everything a lot, and a lot of times it was most of the time conversation turned to back to this one thing: is how do you adapt to doing things your way, or the way you see them that think they need to be done in a generation or a time period where, and let's just be honest, people don't care about anything. People don't care about nothing. you know, I do PA, I do public address. I've worked with the media. I wrote articles, and Dustin and I were talking about it a minute ago. In 1996, I'll never forget. Trammell Stadium there were close to 10,000 people there. Both sides of the bleachers were full for North Jackson, Scottsboro. 1995. Let's see, maybe it was 95. It was at Trammell. I can't remember if it's odd even how it goes. I believe it's odd that we play it. So it's 95 and 97 is what it was, and they were like, and it was the same 96 up there. Both teams undefeated, you know, people everywhere, waiting hours to get in. You know, people still trying to get in, you know, at halftime. People still waiting in line to get in the game. I still remember that. But as in the last 15 years, and it's not just happening at North Jackson, it's happening everywhere. Scottsboro, everywhere. Football, basketball. You see the crowds dwindling and dwindling and dwindling and dwindling and dwindling. Sometimes if you just had a football game and you didn't have the band, you didn't have the little league cheerleaders, you know, running out to do the things, you know, before the games, and their parents and grandparents and all their cousins showing up. Because you see people, as soon as those things are over with, they're out. You know, we don't have, like you said, it seems like community support's dying. People don't have school spirit anymore. They don't have a desire to go out. Friday night used to be where everybody went to the football game because that's what was going on. And now, you know, they got everything else.
Well, and I think there's more opportunities and things to do than there used to be. But it's one of those things I'm starting to see we're having more involvement right now in year 3 than we've had in the first 2 years. And I don't know if that it's starting to catch hold that, hey, they are who they say they are. They're doing things the way that they say they're going to do them. But from a football perspective, like, you know, I understand we are the biggest county local school, and there aren't any other schools around here that are our size. So we're regioned with team in Huntsville. Well, that's hard for our people to relate to. And so what we've had to do, and we've been very fortunate, is, you know, my whole approach to that was to go out and find meaningful non-region games, and all of them are rivalries, and all of them are intense, and there's a lot on the table. But, you know, we're playing Scottsboro every year. We're playing South Pittsburgh every year. Now we've picked up Pisgah, but these are names that it doesn't matter if you went to Bridgeport, if you went to Stevenson High School, if that's, you know, these names, and that is the intrigue to come. And then once they get there, if they see a product out there that they can relate to, that's what you want. And that for us is being a blue-collar physical football team. You know, we want to be physical. Our kids love to hit. They love contact, and that's who we are, and we can't get away from that identity. And when you try to get away from that identity, it turns people off. They don't want a part of that because they can't relate to it. That's
Absolutely.
not – when they show up at R.D. Hicks Stadium, they expect to see a certain brand of football. And you have to deliver that. Now, are you going to be able to draw the same crowds that were drawn 25 years ago? Probably not. But every year it builds a little bit more, and you know, we do have a lot of support. We have tremendous support. You know, I've got a great lady that runs our booster club or does all our fundraising, and you know, we have local businesses and people involved that have tons of interest and want to invest in our kids, and our kids know that. And then for a small program, you know, we've got some of the best equipment, best uniforms, things that you can have out there. We wear the same uniforms, and so does Scottsboro, that Alabama, Ohio State, all the big Nike schools that they wear. And you know, it's starting to change, but they got to relate to your product, and they've got to want to be there. And it's the same thing with the church. Like, they relate to the message, they relate to the feeling they get when they show up and they come, and it's all inclusive, and that's what you got to have on a football team. You know, you're going to have, no matter how many of kids you have, every single one has a different personality.
Yes.
And as a coach, the biggest thing that I've learned in a leadership position is stay true to what you want, what you know needs to happen, and what your core values are, but adapt your approach to each individual. And the approach has to be different. I may be able to say things that impact you one way, and the next one coming up, I've got to say it or approach it a totally different way for him to convey the same message.
Absolutely. Well, I kept you about 7 or 8 minutes longer than what I told you I was going to keep you.
Oh,
I apologize for that. But
no.
Is there anything that you would like to say before we close out?
No, just this has been awesome. I hope everybody listening. I hope this fall you've got some Fridays that you don't have anything to do, and you come out there to R.D. Hicks Stadium beside beautiful Indian Creek, and you come out there and support our Chiefs. Come love up on our kids. They're awesome kids. They really are. They work their rear ends off, and they represent the community the way it's supposed to be. And these are going to be the guys that 10 years from now have their families and they're working jobs around here, and they're supporting and being involved. And you know, that's at the end of the day, Brother Dustin said it best. That is our job. Prepare these men, young men, to be real men. And it's going to come with trials and tribulations, and they're going to have to understand how to deal with that, and they're going to have to understand how to persevere. But no, I feel honored that you have me on here. I mean, heck, getting my dad on the phone and getting Brother Dustin, like, couldn't be better. And you know, I love you, and I love what you've done for our kids, and I'm blessed that you want to be a part and you're willing to pour into them, because they need it, and it's so important. And you know, I think you can tell, because you understand. You come from the outside in. You know how much they lean to, but just by the things they want to talk to you about, and they want to open up their heart, and they want to involve you in their life. And you know, teenage boys, they don't want to do that.
No,
like
those kids last year, I'm gonna tell you. I mean, I could name them. I'm not going to, because I don't want to leave anybody out. But I believe I can name them without missing anybody. They inspired me to go back and finish seminary. And what happened was, I mean, I had to press myself to finish, and because of mistakes that were made on the part of the institution,
right?
I ended up, you know, very swiftly moving, you know, through the bachelor's, and just from circumstances, ended up with my master's degree. I was just blown away, you know. There I was freaking out about it, thinking I can't do it. I had every excuse. My weight was out of control last year. I went through the whole football season limping around. I mean, I was having to go to the heart doctor, feeling terrible. I just had to make some hard choices. And then I did 2 things at the same time. Was one, I started that weight loss. The second was I decided to go finish my bachelor's, and accomplished both of those things before Christmas. And the weight loss took a little longer, but I was already on my way by Christmas. I mean, the diet had started. I was starting to do better. Had to make hard lifestyle changes. It was difficult. But I got inspired to do that because of North Jackson football. Not because of the program. It's really because of the kids. They showed up no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
And they worked hard no matter what. And they believed in what they were being taught, what they were being shown, the lives, up to and including what I was saying to them. You know, and I thought, you know, if these kids can do it, this guy can do it. So I made them, as soon as football season was over with, I went full. I mean, I disappeared for about 3 months. I did the basketball games at Scottsboro, and boy, they call me a traitor on here, but I'm going to tell you, that very first game when North Jackson played, and all of the North Jackson kids are walking up, they're like, "Preach, what are you doing?" But I had promised Will and Cadell and CJ, and I had promised them. I said, "Listen, guys, I'll tell you what I'll do. When you guys come to Scottsboro and play, I'm not going to wear black and gold. I won't wear red and black. I'll wear my Mud Creek stuff." So I wore the church T-shirt. I was hoping neither side would shank me, for me. But I had so much fun. At the same time, I was so drained. I told my wife, I said, I'm just so tired. I'm exhausted. Emotionally, I became, so involved in that. And then even once it was over with, I had no reason to follow through with any of that. I could have just said, I don't care. I'm not going to do it. But I felt like I promised those guys I was going to work hard to get better, going to be healthier.
Yep.
And I was like, I need to. They stuck with me. I'm going to try to honor my word and do that. Man, and now I'm well on my way. And gosh, I just wish some of them were still around to see it,
But and you say, Dustin said it, but, I'm really not a humble person. I don't view myself as a humble person. I view myself as a very selfish person, because what we get back from those kids, it's so self-rewarding. It makes you want to. That's why you do what you do. That's why you try so hard. That's why you push them. That's why you get up every day. That's every sacrifice you make, and what you get in return. I do view it as very selfish, and my wife and I have these conversations, from when I was coaching at Auburn, the thrill you get of winning it doesn't hold a candle to when you're doing it with your kids that grew up doing this. They're making all these sacrifices, and then to watch them succeed, you can't duplicate that feeling. It's the biggest rush I've ever had in my life, and it keeps you going and keeps you motivated, and you don't want to let them down.
Yep. I remember when I was in basic training, a guy who's I'm still very close to. He's a sheriff of Blount County now. His name's Mark Moon. I had him on the podcast a few weeks ago, and he and I went back then. We were in basic training when 9/11 happened. It was our first day of BRM. And we actually talked about that on the air, the change that happened in the world. But he and I, we were just a year apart in age. He went to Cleveland High School. He was an all-state, running back. He went to UAB, stayed for a year, and then he left school and pursued the ministry and, eventually law enforcement. So outside of the ministry, law enforcement was the only real job he'd ever had out, other than the military. The things he and I went through, just physically and emotionally, the breaking you down that they do, it's not the yelling and the screaming. We talked about this one time, and it's not the yelling and the screaming and all the people in your face, much like coaches being in some. It wasn't the yelling and the screaming that bothered me. It was the physical, you being pushed to the point of exhaustion, feeling like you couldn't take another ounce of pressure, and then somehow another digging down in there, mustering up enough intestinal fortitude to go out and just do it one more time. And, I heard Nick Saban do a speech one time, and he said that when he was living in Florida, the guys were coming to put windows in his house, and he said, how do you decide that this window's more expensive than this window? And he said the builder said, well, what does it take to break this window versus what does it take to break this window? You're going to have more the one that's harder to break. And he said, we don't break them by yelling and screaming at them. We break them by just they break themselves.
Mm-hmm.
We don't break them. They break themselves. You find out what it takes to break this guy. It's a whole lot more than it takes to break this guy. And then once you figure out where they break, then you can help them.
Right. No, that's exactly right.
I thought it was amazing, to listen to that understanding. But he was talking about when he was at Michigan State, and I've heard you say this in a roundabout way. The year, I think it was 98, they were 4-5. Ohio State was ranked number 1, I think, in the country, number 2, something like that. They were undefeated. And he said, and nobody in the world thought we were going to win. And, we had our doubts. He said, so that week we decided that the way we were going to coach that game was we're going to focus on the plays. And he said, really, that's where the process started, was focusing on each play. And when that play was over, forget that play, focus on the next play. Every play. And he said that's where that all began. Really was because of that win against Ohio State. He said because it was maybe the he still talks, and I thought that was great that still to this day, that's the one game that he looks back on. Well, it's pivotal.
It changed everything.
Yeah.
He went from he was going to get fired.
Yeah.
And that was going to be his third failed time as a leader, and then they go through the process, they win that game, and now he's become what he's become, arguably the best head coach in college football history. And I'm not an Alabama guy by any means, but you got to have a certain amount of respect for being so disciplined and having that. And like, if you look out there, and I know now they all can compete with each other monetarily, but those guys know the ones that want to be the best, they choose to go through that and put themselves through that. And there's probably 120 other universities that they could go to, and they wouldn't be put through the same process.
I say something to people who come here. Somebody ever approaches me and say, Preach, I want to do this, or I feel like to do this, or I want to do this, or this, that, and the other, want to work this area, that area. I tell them something I learned from Tommy Tuberville, actually, when he was coaching at Auburn. He said, they didn't have a lot of turnover back in those days. I think, Petrino left, to move out. But other than that, people just didn't leave Auburn. That was just,
Well, not voluntarily.
Not voluntarily. Nobody left voluntarily other than just to step up, But one of the things that and I'll never forget him saying it was, people come and go in other places, but they don't run away from Auburn. And the reason is because Tubbs lets you coach. I'm not going to, unless I have to. If I have to micromanage you, I'm taking it away from you.
Right.
But if you're willing to sacrifice and do what it takes to be successful, Tubbs is going to let you coach. I'll never forget him saying that. I don't know if he still refers to himself as Tubbs, but
no, that's truly who he was. Now he was a CEO, and now he would tell the highest paid guys, the coordinators, they knew production was the basis of whether or not they had a job, but he wasn't going to get involved in that. He knew what his role was. He knew what he had to do. He knew whatever Booster Club means, all that stuff. And he was very, very good at it. And that's why he's had a successful political career, because he is playing this thing out from the jump. And he did. He allowed those coaches to coach, and those coaches were great coaches. And that's a place, it's very similar to being around here. Like, once you're there, you don't want to leave.
Yeah.
Like, you got everything you want. You've got the facilities. You've got the support. I mean, they're diehards, And the good thing about being in the state of Alabama, you've got that underdog mentality in you all the time.
Some people don't realize, I have been asked a bunch of times, why Mud Creek? Why in the world would you go to Mud Creek? I mean, you're up there in the middle of nowhere. Well, I was raised 2 miles, exactly 1.72 miles from this spot of ground right here. I was raised right there where you turn to go to Mud Creek Restaurant, right there where Kendall and Frankie live. That's the spot of ground I grew up on. So this is home for me. A lot of people don't really realize that when this whole thing came to fruition, it was just a culmination of a lifetime of wanting to go home, wanting to be home, and I'm home. That's why I have so much passion about this place, because I'm home. That fly is about to tell it to Jesus. If I can get my hands on it, I'm going to send it on to glory. But, man, Coach, I can't tell you enough how much I appreciate you being on tonight. It's been It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah,
It's been a fast 2 hours, man.
It's been a lot of fun, and I think the boys are going to be proud. I made it through the whole thing without any language mishaps.
I will tell this story. This will be my funny story. And I won't say every little detail, but my favorite memory from last season and it happened in that Westminster game, was when we got down there. They made things rough on us from the very beginning.
Oh gosh, yeah.
And I say, that's one of the greatest things is about being a chaplain is I get to follow you guys when y'all have been so passionate. I said, but one thing about Coach, he always says, pray us in and pray us out. We're leaving the same way we came in, and with the Lord's blessings. And it was great to be able to do that. But I'll never forget at Westminster, those officials came in, they did what they did.
Never had one like that. Yeah. Never seen one like
that. It was awful. But you said, pray us in, preach, and I prayed, and very colorfully, let's go. and I looked around the room, and all those volunteers, were in there. They
didn't quite understand. He's taking this a little overboard, but
I think they were going to have to. They thought they were going to have to reconsecrate the place after we walked. Oh, it was great. Oh man, there's so many fun things happening. I can't thank you enough for giving me that opportunity to do that. I didn't know how much I was going to enjoy doing that. I thought that I would enjoy it. I didn't know that I would actually be that passionate about it. And then, like I said a minute ago, the only regret that I have is that I can't be there more. Of course, practice will be starting for long. You'll have them longer, and then the time frame that I can be up there and be a little bit different, better. I'm working some different things out schedule wise this year. But my goodness, I'm really excited about it.
No, me too. It's going to be a great year.
Yeah.
It's going to be a lot of fun, and we're excited about the staff that we've been able to put together. We've had some guys that have got head coaching opportunities other places, and we've replaced them with some guys that have been here before and some that haven't. And it's just the way it's kind of coming together it's kind of cool, and it's going to be a lot of fun.
Well, I look forward to it, and as much as I look forward to, what we're doing here, I'm looking forward to football season. I'm passionate about a lot of things. I love doing media stuff. I love doing this kind of stuff. That's a brand new avenue for me. I still feel like I'm trying to get my feet, turning in it. This year, if Lord willing, things continue on the path they're on, I'm going to feel much, much better.
Oh, yeah.
I think you can already tell that. So I'm really looking forward to a season that I don't have all this other stuff going on behind the scenes, and able to do a little bit more, and be a little more involved, and a little more active. And I'm kind of stoked about it.
Yes.
I'm looking forward to coming to practice and being able to jog a little bit.
There you go.
I couldn't jog from one end of the field to the other last year, but this year I might be able to do that. I'm excited about this. The little things, man.
Absolutely. And they keep you young.
Yes, they do.
That's the truth.
Yes, they do. Well, Coach, I can't tell you enough, how much I appreciate you coming and being on the program, and I hope the folks have enjoyed it as much as I have, and I think they will. We'll get all this uploaded very soon, and then make it where you can share it, and I'll get you the audio file, and the podcast file and stuff. It's free. If they have iPhones, it don't cost them a penny. The Podbean app that I use to upload, it's a free app too, if they got a smartphone. And I think you can actually go on the internet if they don't have smartphones and want to just go listen.
Okay.
That way I'll get you those links, and I'll try to get it on YouTube. If I can get it on YouTube, it makes it real easy. You can share it right to their emails or cell phones or whatever. But, yeah, man, we're really doing some different things because we want to get stuff like this. It's important to me that the church be more involved in things like this.
Mm-hmm.
I can't do enough of it as far as I'm concerned. You know, we can't invest enough in our kids.
Nope.
And if we're going to have any future, it's going to start with them.
That's right. Well, they are the future.
That's exactly right. Well, I appreciate it. I'm going to pray, and so we can end this thing the right way. But again, Coach, thank you. Anything else you want to say?
No, sir.
All
right.
right.
Thank you.
Well, I appreciate you being on. Let's pray. Father, we thank you for the day. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. Lord, we thank you for all of our listeners. Thank you for Coach Hollis, his family, Lord. Thank you for Mud Creek. And, Lord, we just thank you for all those that you've allowed to be in our lives, all the things and the places and the people, Lord, that we've been in contact with, all the situations, circumstances, both the good and the bad, that have happened to bring us to this place. God, we just want to give you honor and glory and praise for that. And as the old song says, we thank you, Lord, and for the broken roads that led us to this place. And we realize now that the roads weren't really broken. They were just a little bumpy. And God, we thank you for the opportunity to do what we do in the hours and the days and the time that we're doing it in. Thank you for the relationships, God, that we formed, all the people that we've got to know and meet, and the opportunities to be involved in ministry and leadership and just affect the lives of others in a positive way. Father, we thank you for this time. Thank you for all these that have joined. And I pray, Lord, if there's anything going on in anybody's life, any sickness, disease, circumstance, God, beyond our control, God, that you just touch and bless each one according to your will and your way and in your time. And Lord, we just ask you to go with us now, lead us, guys, direct us all the way you'd have us to go. And we'll be careful to thank you and praise you and give you the honor and glory for it all in Jesus' name. Everybody, I appreciate you tuning in tonight. Thank you all for listening, and we look forward to next week. Stay tuned for special guests. We're going to be doing this more often with different folks, and we're excited about the ones we got already locked in to come. So until next time, you guys have a great evening. Thank you for meeting us at the Creek, and we hope you enjoyed today's podcast. If you have questions or comments you'd like for us to read, send those to mudcreekpastor@gmail.com. Again, that's mudcreekpastor@gmail.com. Thank you for meeting us at the Creek, and we'll see you next time.